Good morning to all of you. So we were on capacity to contract. In revising the syllabus, we were on the chapter of capacity to contract. Correct? We discussed about who are competent to contract definition. Then we started discussing about agreements by minors. When the minority is over and majority starts, that we discussed. Then we discussed about law relating to minors agreement. Then we were on agreements by persons of unsound mind. So what is unsound mind we discussed. Then we were on factors affecting soundness of mind. Correct? We will wait for a few moments. Let the other join. Then we will continue with this. So let us start now. Factors affecting soundness of mind. I think you can see the presentation. Correct, no? Factors affecting the soundness of mind. IDOC. Idiot, you call it as idiot. An idiot is permanently mentally deranged person. Hence is incapable of entering into a contract. So capacity of this person is permanently damaged, mental capacity. This person is disqualified from entering into a contract. Lunacy. It is mental disorder. Agreement by lunatic is void. When he is of sound mind, he can enter into valid contract. So this person for some time is of sound mind. Correct? So some intervals may be there that he may be of sound mind. And for the remaining period, he will be of unsound mind. So his mental capacity is permanently, temporarily damaged. I'm sorry, temporarily damaged. So this person will be called as lunatic, lunacy. So he can enter into contract when he is of sound mind. He can enter into contract. Third is drunkenness. Drunkenness. A person who is of unsound mind due to heavy consumption of alcohol, sharab. Because of consumption of alcohol, his mental capacity is damaged temporarily. So as soon as that effect of alcohol, or you can call it as unsoundness of mind is over, he is competent to contract. Correct? Then, so these are the three factors which affect the soundness of mind. Now, presumption. A person who is usually of sound mind, please read it carefully. Yeah? A person who is usually of sound mind is always presumed to be of sound mind. Usually, in normal course, regularly, who is of sound mind is always presumed to be of sound mind. And a person who is usually of unsound mind is always presumed to be of unsound mind unless the contrary is proved. So if a person is usually of sound mind, he will be presumed as sound mind. And if a person is usually of unsound mind, he will be presumed to be of unsound mind. Correct? Next sentence, burden of proof is on the party claiming. Burden of proof. Burden. Burden is what? Responsibility. Responsibility of proving is on party claiming. So if a person wants to prove, or if a person is saying that I am of sound mind, then it is for him to prove that he is of sound mind. Correct? Next, contract can be made for benefits of a person of unsound mind. Similarly, the property is liable for necessaries. So this point we will discuss again in quasi contracts. Correct? Just remember that. So that's all with a person of unsound mind. Next is agreements by disqualified persons. Disqualified persons. So agreements by disqualified persons are not enforceable, are void. Alien enemies. Alien means foreigner. Enemy means matlab shatru. Correct, no? So any agreement with alien enemy or with a person of country who is at war with Republic of India, such agreement will be declared as void. So during the continuance of the war, the agreement is suspended, and if the war starts, you can contract, But as soon as the war starts, the agreement is suspended, and during continuance of the war, the agreement will be void. Correct? Incorporated body, the next point, incorporated bodies or corporations. What does it mean? They are disqualified from doing certain things. For example, incorporated body, which is that example is joint stock company. So there is a restriction on joint stock company to enter into certain contracts. There is a document called as Memorandum of Association of a joint stock company, which positively states that what the company can do and which negatively states that what the company cannot do. This we have to study in your semester 4 when you will study the Companies Act. But for the today's purpose, I'll explain it to you in brief. What does it mean? Memorandum of Association and object clause in the Memorandum of Association. So there is a clause called as object clause in the Memorandum of Association. That object clause states the businesses which the company will do. So company can do those businesses mentioned in the object clause. So positively the object clause states the businesses which the company can do, and negatively it states which businesses the company cannot do. Suppose in the object clause there are 4 businesses written, 1, 2, 3, 4. So except this 1, 2, 3, 4, company cannot do anything. So company is disqualified from doing any business which is outside the purview of 1, 2, 3, and 4, or which is outside the purview of object clause. Is this clear to you? Foreign sovereigns. Foreign sovereigns means foreign ambassadors, correct? Foreign presidents or foreign delegates. There is an immunity granted to them, correct? Next, convict. Convict is what? A person who is sentenced to imprisonment by the court. Sentenced, saza, sentenced to imprisonment. Imprisonment is what? Jail. So the person who is in jail loses his capacity to enter into a contract. Loses his capacity to enter into a contract. So a person who has been convicted, सजा दे दी है, conviction. So that person is in jail and he is undergoing imprisonment for the particular offense, then he loses the capacity. He can come out for some reasons, for some time from the jail. That is called as ticket of leave. So for that particular period, when he comes out, he gets back his contractual capacity. He gets back his contractual capacity. And when he goes inside again, his contractual capacity is again lost. Okay. And suppose he is inside and his contracting capacity is lost, the period of limitation, you just keep it in mind and remember this, the period of limitation is saved. Just keep this in mind, the period of limitation is saved. Okay. Next type of person who is disqualified is insolvent. When a person is declared as insolvent, his property will be taken charge of by the official receiver or official assignee. When a person will be declared insolvent? When his liabilities are more than his assets. His liabilities are more than his assets. Correct, no? So If the liabilities are more than the assets, all the liabilities cannot be paid from selling by selling the assets. So to distribute the assets into liabilities in proportion, a person will be appointed. He will be called as official receiver or official assignee. So he will take charge or he will seize the assets of that insolvent person. He will sell those assets and pay the liabilities in proportion. Correct? Now, as soon as this person, official receiver or official assignee, takes charge of the assets of the insolvent person, this insolvent person does not have anything in his hands. So he does not have anything on the basis of which he can contract. Correct, no? So this person loses the capacity to enter into the contract. So here we complete the revision of our chapter of capacity to contract. If you have difficulties, please ask me. We will wait for 2 minutes. By then, I will change the slide. So any difficulty in the chapter of capacity to contract? So with the end of capacity to contract chapter, we have completed the revision of module 1 of your syllabus. Now we are going on module 2, Indian Contract Act, part 2. First chapter will be consent and free consent. Read. The slide is before you. Please read the slide. Finished reading? What is the heading of the chapter? Free consent. Consent means what? Assent. Correct? Consent. Consent is given, means saying yes. Correct, no? Consent is what? Saying yes. Saying no is not giving consent. Read. Consent, section 13. Two or more parties are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense. What is written in the definition? Section 13. Two or more parties are said to consent when they agree upon the same thing in the same sense. Agree upon the same thing in the same sense. Agreeing upon the same thing in the same sense means consent. Correct? Same thing is understood in the same sense by the both the parties. I'll give you one example, very short and simple example. In the morning, you are going for a college, you feel like having a coffee. So you enter into a restaurant. Correct? You enter into a restaurant, you order for coffee. The waiter brings the tea. Will you accept it? No. So the waiter has not understood the same thing which you have told him. Correct, no? You have asked him to bring a coffee, but he has brought a cup of tea for you. So both the parties have not understood the same thing in the same sense. So there is no consent. And what has happened here? There is some mistake, some misunderstanding, some erroneous belief is there. Correct? Some error has happened. That you told him coffee, he took it in the wrong way, he took it as a tea and he brought the tea. So you are not at consent. Suppose if you tell him coffee and he brings coffee, you have, both of you have agreed upon the same thing in the same sense. So you are at consent. Correct? Correct? Now, let us see the next definition, free consent. Section 14. Consent means what you have understood. What is the heading of the chapter? Free consent. So we have to understand what do you mean by free consent. So let us read the definition. Consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion as defined in section 15 or undue influence as defined in section 16 or fraud as defined in section 17 or misrepresentation as defined in section 18 or mistake subject to the provisions of sections 20, 21 and 22. Very long definition, no? Read it carefully as I read it just now. We will read it again. First you read it, then we'll read it again. Finished reading? Let us read it now again. Consent is said to be free. Consent will be free when it is not caused by. Not caused by. So if the consent is not caused by, 1, coercion, 2, undue influence, 3, fraud, 4, misrepresentation, 5, mistake. Then the consent is free. So if the consent is caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake, then the consent will be unfree or the consent will not be free. I will repeat again. Consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake. So if the consent is caused by any of these, the consent will be unfree or the consent will not be free. So to make the consent free, it should not be caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake. Is this clear? Try to memorize this. Try to analyze this and keep it in mind. We have to study this one by one now. So first, fix it in your mind that if the consent is caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake, the consent is unfree. Oh, correct. So to make the consent free, it should not be caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake. Correct? So we have to discuss this now one by one. What is coercion? What is undue influence? What is fraud? What is misrepresentation? What is mistake? And what happens if the consent is caused by one or any of these factors? So the consent is caused by coercion. First of all, we have to understand what is coercion. Then what happens if the consent is caused by coercion? In the same way, undue influence. What do you mean by undue influence? What happens if the consent is caused by undue influence? Fraud. What do you mean by fraud? And what happens if the consent is caused by way of fraud? What do you mean by misrepresentation? And what happens if the consent is caused by misrepresentation? What do you mean by mistake? And what happens if the consent is caused by misrepresentation? Please mute yourself. Correct. So let us discuss this one by one. Let us go to the next slide. Coercion, duress, putting a person in threat. So what is coercion? Putting a person in threat. Some disturbance is there. Who has put his mic on? Sarfraz, please put off your mic. Let's start. Coercion. What is coercion? Duress or putting a person in threat. Section 15. Now we have to read it very slowly and very carefully. Coercion means committing or threatening to commit. So committing is what? Actual doing, or threatening to commit. Giving a threat that I will do. Giving a threat that I will do. What? Any act. Any act. So doing of any act or giving a threat that I will do this act. How the act is? Act is forbidden by Indian Penal Code. Forbidden is prohibited, not allowed. By which code? Indian Penal Code. So Indian Penal Code is a code or act which defines various crimes and stipulates or mentions the punishment for those crimes. So coercion means committing or threatening to commit any crime not allowed by Indian Penal Code. This is first part of the definition. Or read further. The unlawful detaining. Detain means to keep with oneself. Unlawfully detaining or threatening to detain any property. Unlawful detaining or threatening to detain any property. Actual detention or giving a threat that I will detain any property to the prejudice of any person, whatever. Prejudice means against the interest of any person. So this is second part. First part talks about doing some act or giving the threat that I will do some act which is not allowed by Indian Penal Code. Second part talks about unlawful detaining or threatening to detain the property. ये सब क्यों करना है? Why these all things are to be done? With the intention of causing any person to enter into an agreement. With the intention of causing any person, forcing any person, inducing any person to enter into an agreement. So unless these things are done, the other party will not enter into a contract with you. That's why these things are required to be done. Correct? I'll give you an example. I want to enter into a contract with Mr. X. I know that Mr. X will not enter into a contract with me. So what I do, I show him a knife and I actually hurt him and tell him that you enter into a contract. So under the threat, Mr. X enters into a contract with me. Or I don't hurt him actually, but I give him a threat by showing a knife that if you do not enter into a contract with me, I will stab you, I will hurt you. So this amounts to commission of a crime not allowed by Indian Penal Code. Giving the threat of stabbing, giving a threat of murder. That threat that I will cause your murder. So giving a threat of committing a crime not permitted by Indian Penal Code or actually committing a crime. These things are done with the intention to cause Mr. X, with the intention to force Mr. X, with intention to induce Mr. X to enter into a contract with me. Correct? Another example regarding detaining of the property. I snatched the gold chain of Mr. X and asked him and told him that I will not return the gold chain till he enters into a contract with me. So what is this? Unlawful detaining the property of another. Why? With the intention of causing any person to enter into a contract. With the intention of causing him to enter into a contract. Correct. So I have given you both the examples of one of committing or threatening to commit act forbidden by Indian Penal Code, and another is unlawful detaining or threatening to detain. So why all these things are required to be done? Why this committing? Just a minute. Why this acts or of threatening or actual commission or unlawful detaining is done with the intention to force the other party to enter into a contract. Correct? Next is consequences. If the coercion is applied on the other party and other party is forced to enter into a contract, what will be the effect of that contract? What will happen if the coercion is applied and the other party is forced to enter into a contract? That party has two choices. First choice is to continue with the contract. Another choice is to avoid the contract. Suppose if I threat Mr. X and force him to enter into a contract, he will enter into a contract at that moment of time. But thereafter, he will complain to the police and he will put me behind bars. And there he will tell me, sir, I don't want to continue with the contract. So what he is doing? He is avoiding the contract. So that is called as voidable contract. So let us read the consequence. When the consent to an agreement is caused by coercion, consent to the agreement is caused by coercion. The reason behind the consent is what? Coercion. The agreement is a contract. The agreement will become a contract because there is a consent. But that contract is voidable, that is avoidable at the option of the person whose consent is so caused. At the option, so that person has been given option. If you want to avoid, you can avoid. If you want to continue, you can continue. Correct? So that person has been given the option. That person can exercise the option. Out of the two options, one option can be exercised. First option is to continue with the contract. Another option is to avoid the contract. Correct, no? Correct. So that is on with respect to coercion. Let us go to the next slide. Undue influence. Please read the definition under section 16. Undue influence. Have you read the definition under section 16? Undue influence, what is the meaning in short? Unfair use of one's position. So one party is taking unfair advantage or making unfair use of his position. Let us read now section 16. A contract is said to be induced by undue influence. Contract is said to be induced by undue influence, where the relations subsisting between the parties, subsisting means existing. The relations between the parties are such that one of the parties, so out of two, one of them is in a position to dominate, varchasva, the will of another. What is it dominated? Will, ichha, and uses that position to obtain an unfair advantage over the other. Correct? So one person is in the position of dominant, is in a dominant position. Is in a position to dominate the will of another and uses that position to obtain unfair advantage over the other. So position is used to gain something which is unfair, obtain unfair advantage over the other. Correct? So two parties are there in a contract. Out of them, one party is in a dominant position. Like a relation between you and me. I am your teacher. You are my student. So I am dominating your will. What I will say, you will feel that it is correct. Naturally, no? So I will use that position that I am dominating your will, and I will use that position to obtain unfair advantage over you. Example. This is only example. I am not going to do anything like this. I am your teacher. You have bought a new mobile for rupees 25,000. I tell you that please sell that mobile to me for 10,000 only. Otherwise, you will have to face the consequences. I'm not going to do anything of this sort. This is just an example to make you understand what is undue influence. So I'm your teacher. You are my students. So superiority is with me. So I have the power to dominate your will. What I will say will be accepted by you as it is. So I am dominating your will. So when I tell you that sell that mobile to me for 10,000 rupees, you are forced to do that because you feel that I may fail you in the exam. So what I have done? I have used my position and obtained an unfair advantage over you. Obtained an unfair advantage over you. So in the transaction, I am having a real or apparent authority over you. Correct? No? I am more superior in position. So I am in a position to dominate your will. So I am using that against you and obtaining an unfair advantage over you. Correct? Let us read further. Circumstances where undue influence is presumed to exist. Circumstances where undue influence is presumed to exist. Now we will stop here. We'll have a break of 10 to 15 minutes. We will be back on sharp 9 o'clock. Okay. We'll be back on at sharp 9 o'clock. Okay. So please refresh yourself and join at sharp 9 o'clock. Okay. Welcome back. There was a network issue. So undue influence means one person is dominating the will. Correct, no? Just wait. Let others join now. They have not come from the break. Or shall we start? We shall start. Chalo. Contract is said to be induced by undue influence, where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of another.